When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Meta Show. It is Saturday, December 2nd. And this is the Meta Show. Now, you're going to notice, first off, something weird has happened. I shouldn't say weird. This happens all the time. Brisc is not here. Brisc Rubal is not here. And on his way out, he left the door open. Now, I don't know if you've ever been told by a father figure or perhaps a grandfather or some kind of elderly person about what happens when you leave doors open. All kinds of riffraff can get in. And this week, that has happened. I am joined this week by three of my friends, my colleagues, in Youngpuke2, Phantomite, and Alexander Blessed. Youngpuke, of course, is the head of Sedition Alliance, which is a group in the Galente Militia. Phantomite, of course, is the Meta Show's oft reoccurring villain, and our Brisc Rubal, our arch rival, one might add. And of course, Alexander Bless is FC for dock workers. I'm
the executor of dock workers.
Hell yeah, the executor of dock workers. Please don't let me play that down enough. The executor of dock workers in the Eurisses militia. Boys, how you doing?
Doing great. Saturday, can't be upset.
Yeah, no, you really cannot. Fant, it's so good to see you here.
It's always good to be here. I know that, every 3 months or so, you got to get somebody on who can use words longer than 2 syllables.
That is true.
So,
That is true. I am so stoked. And Puke, of course. Puke, my boy.
What's up, my man?
You're in the middle of an op right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm literally FCing at the same time. We'll be good, though. We'll be fine.
I fucking love it, man. Well, gentlemen, welcome to the Meta Show. We're going to talk today. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to talk too much about nullsec. And I'm sorry, goons. I know you're all excited to hear about the exciting things that happened in nullsec this week. But bad news is there aren't many. But the good news is there was one big thing we're going to talk about. And then we're going to talk about LowSec for a little bit. It's just past the 1 year the 1 year anniversary of the Uprising expansion from last year, which was met with tons of acclaim across the board. Has really seen a huge revival for LowSec space, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about where we are now, what kind of came before, and then where we're going to go into the future. So, I hope audio sounds good. If everybody, everything sounds great. What's the blocked word? Mark's OnlyFans account? You guys don't need to see that. Trust me. Okay, let's get into some interesting stuff. So, I want to start with... Here we go. We're going to go to the browser screen. Whoa, look, I've got a transition for that. Here's the biggest news of the week. It's probably not, maybe it's not the biggest news. It probably is the biggest news. If you just want to talk in terms of sheer numbers, this is the big story. So
it's the most novelty news of the week.
It certainly is the most novelty news of the week. So for those of you who don't know, earlier this week, the AT ships for the last AT were released, and they were all distributed out to their teams. The two ships that were given out are the Sybil or Sibeli. I'm just gonna call it the Sybil.
I keep reading it as Cybele.
Cybele is probably better.
That's how I'm reading it. I haven't heard it.
No, I think you're right. I think Cybele works better. Sybil, there's another E.
This is your chance to define what it's called.
Yeah, I think it's the Cybele. I think you're right, Fant. And then the Shapash, the assault frig, two very interesting AT ships. Of course, these AT ships, because of the novelty of them, because of how few there are when they're given out, they can generate tons and tons of value. These things will sell for hundreds of billions of ISK a piece in some cases. I've seen people already trying to hawk Cybels for at least 200 to 250 billion ISK, which is you would think an insane number, but people absolutely will pay that money to have these ships. So the Cybel and the Shapash were both given out. Now, things were a little bit different. I shouldn't say a little bit different. So in previous years, in the years gone by, the standard for how they handed out these ships were they had two ways of doing it. Either you would receive some BPCs that you could use that had a build cost of like 1 trit, I think, and you could use you could just build the ships yourself. I
do hope CCP gave people the trit as well.
Well, you do wonder about that, don't you? You have to pay the 1 trit if you want your AT ship. Killer if you don't have any trit.
Nothing in life is free, is it?
You can't even get it in a noob ship anymore. What is this economy?
Seriously, I mean, yeah, I don't even get into
Everything's too expensive.
I had so much nice trit in my every time if you just a little pick me up, you know what I mean? Every time you hopped in that Ibis, it's just another new trit, and you're like, you know what, things are gonna be okay. Not anymore. This is CCP in 2023. Inflation's a bitch. Anyway, so we have, they had this way of distributing them, and then they also had the way in which you would just get a contract. A contract would show up for either the captain or the executor of the alliance in question that had the ships there, usually sent from somebody at CCP, and you would get the contract, and you could just get the ships that way. Well, last year, I believe, because last year was the first year back. They did something a little bit different, where they just deposited the ships directly into the hangar of the captain or the executor, and whoever the designated person was, which is a convenient thing to do, but can apparently lead to some issues. So we had a situation happen the other day wherein the God bless them, the team from, make sure I get the name right, Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports had received their ships, but the person who received their ships was the Alliance executor, not either one of the co-captains or the primary captain, which is Virian Stoneshard. The executive of the Alliance, Baltram is his name, right? Yes, Baltram, had received the ships. And when he was asked to log on to get them so he could distribute them, he saw a contract that had gone up. And in his excitement, he clicked accept on that contract. Now, I don't need to tell you probably what happened next, but I will. Which is that contract was not a delivery contract, because CCP's not delivering delivering AT ships like that anymore. It was in fact a transfer contract for 0 ISK. So somebody had sent him a contract for the quantity of ships that they had received, which was announced ahead of time by CCP. It should be said. CCP announced which teams were getting which ships and in what quantity. He received that contract, clicked the button, and the ships were taken out of his hangar immediately. And that was it. The ships
I'm sure there's a simple answer for this, but my one question I still have about it is, how did the Chancer know which characters the ships were being
Now, that's a good
sent
question.
to?
That's a good question. I don't know. I honestly
There
have no
must
idea.
be an answer to it, because nobody's raising that as an issue,
You would think so, and I want to say this ahead of time. A lot of different people have had a lot of different hot takes about this issue. I'm not going to take a position on this. I think it is unfortunate that the guys who wanted ships or who earned those ships by their placement in the AT aren't going to get them. That sucks. Whatever the reason for this, whatever caused this, a lot of different things being thrown around. The biggest, obviously the Occam's razor of the whole situation is that Baltram just did an oopsie, you know what I mean? And that sucks. If that's the case, that's a problem. I should say there have been some complaints raised. So the way I understand it is that prior to, because here's the issue, Baltram was never supposed, or according to the team from Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports, Baltram was never supposed to receive these ships because he was long-term AFK. He hadn't been around in a while. So either CCP had reached out to the two captains of that team, which were, of course, Virion Stoneshard and the Basilisk, our boy Baza, and asked them where they needed to go. However, my understanding is that they perhaps did not reach out to Virion, who had intended the ships to come to himself. They instead reached out to Baza, and Baza said, "Oh yeah, just send them to Baltrum." However, obviously that led to some issue, but there elsewhere in this thread, I think if you go down here, yes, right here. I don't know if you can see this on the screen. Let me blow it up a little bit. Oh, hang on, I'm blowing up the wrong screen. There we go. Yeah,
in the mud and using old Reddit would be able to read it better.
Yeah. I know. So, Virion says, we spoke to CCP Aurora in July because Baltrum, our executor, was inactive, and we need to file the roster and flagship choices, etc. I was told to mail that info to the community team, which I did on the same day, and our team was aware that I'd asked them to name me team captain instead and make sure the prizes went to me, not to the executor, which would have been Baltrum. CCP Zealous apparently had me and Baza listed as co-captains and only asked Baza to confirm where the prizes should go. I didn't even know until the ships were already gone. As fucking team captain, our executor shouldn't have even had the prizes in the first place if CCP followed their own communication. A mess. An absolute mess. So much miscommunication apparently was happening here. So much, misunderstanding by the looks of it. Now, of course, I would not be a good journalist, and I am a journalist in a way, just a very strange shirtless journalist on the internet. I would not be a very good journalist if I did not point out the fact that a lot of different people in this thread, just speculation, they don't have any reason to say this one way or the other, are calling this RMT on the part of Baltrum, or maybe even not RMT, maybe some kind of chicanery, some kind of tomfoolery, maybe a little bit of trickery. We've seen a lot of theft happening recently, of course, inspired perhaps by Jay. Maybe this was another big theft, and then we're talking 3 trillion ISK worth of ships, probably from the 16 ships that were stolen. Now, whether or not this is anything like that is not for me to say. I'm not going to hypothesize about what happened. I don't know the intentions of the people involved. I do know that Baza and Virion, at least on face value, seem very upset about this whole thing, and I don't blame them. If we take them at their word, then it is something that unfortunate that happened, between them and their executor. Now, of course, they would like those ships to be returned to them so that they can distribute them to their team as they had intended originally. However, my speculation, and this is only speculation, is that is not going to happen. This is such a cat. Please get off my desk. Sorry. This is such an EVE Online thing that has happened. It would be very strange, I think, if CCP came back and reneged on this transaction effectively.
Well, I feel like there's 2 things here. A lot of things here, but 2 things I want to bring up about this that appear to be competing with each other. Is number one, I feel that the mechanics of this scam the mechanics of how this scam was carried out are perfectly in line with the soul of EVE Online.
Oh yeah.
But I also feel at the same time that if CCP wasn't following the guidelines that they had told people to expect as to how these things would be distributed, that CCP has been a huge part of this problem. And just as a disclaimer, I consider myself pretty close friends with Baza, with Baltrum, and with quite a number of people in that alliance there. I spent several years with them, and we've never lost contact. I do very also have some sympathy for the scammer.
Yeah.
Because they haven't done anything that isn't explicitly allowed in the game.
And
they've pulled off a legitimate scam, which is a strange couple of words to put together.
Yeah.
And scammers who are successful within the rules of the game must have what they have gained from the scam.
I will say this. The opinions on this are always going to come down to how you feel about scams as a legitimate tactic in EVE Online, right? If you're one of those people who, hang on a second, there's some shitters in the chat. I'm gonna get rid of real fast. It's that guy Straight.
I was going to say I knew who
This
you were
is
talking
Eve.
about.
When is there not some
Yeah.
shitters in the chat?
I know. This is here's the thing. It's one of these where hang on one moment. Let me do this. When you are man, it's tricky, right? Because so much of this is a he said she said kind of deal. Where it all depends on what conversations happen behind the scenes, right? And we're never really going to know probably the conversations that happen between Baza and Virion and between all of them. At Fate, it will be easy for us, as let's go back to the other screen. We've seen enough of this page on Reddit. It would be really easy for us just to write this off as, oh, somebody fucked up, right? Or, oh, they just miscommunicated and now they're just grasping at straws. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if, we'll ever know what the truth of the matter is. I do know that for the guys who earn those ships and who work, put in thousands of hours collectively to get to the point where they could win, they got ships. That sucks. And I feel bad for them.
I don't think there's any question as to the fact that this is unfair on a large number of people who've put a huge amount of effort in. But
yeah.
the element of fairness within EVE Online is essentially irrelevant.
I agree.
To any final outcome. I feel simultaneously that the scammer has done something legitimately, and I simultaneously feel that CCP has messed up in an unfortunately incredibly grey way.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this: if nothing else, it makes for compelling television, and isn't that really what we are all here for?
Yeah. I think there's something else that should be taken, and I think that it's a sort of the show. The writing is on the wall. It's closing the stable door after the horse has bolted, but I think that this clearly shows that there needs to be locked in, guaranteed distribution methods of the prizes that are pre-arranged, be it a form that people, maybe it takes the form of a form people fill in to say these are the members of our team, and these are the numbers of ships each one should be given should we win, and then CCP should adhere to that, and it should be predictable, and it should be a process that everybody can read and a process that is followed to the word. And obviously, this has shown that it should always have been like that. But the second best time for them to do this is now.
Yeah.
Is to formalize the entire distribution process, and let people say we want one guy to receive all the ships, but also have a way so that people can say these are the team members. If we win, I want this person, and this person to get this, and this.
Well, and
so it's all written down and followed.
Casimir makes a good point in chat as well. They have the redeem window. I mean, the redeem window exists for a reason. They could use the redeem window. I mean,
they certainly could, but that's just the mechanics of how the item how and where the item appears. The issue at hand here is the logic and predictability of how the rules were followed as to where they should go.
Right. Well, unfortunate for those guys. Certainly interesting to talk about. I'm sure this is not the last we are going to hear of this. My heart goes out to those guys. It sucks. But, that's how it goes. Let's move on. Gentlemen, so you are all... Let's talk about you guys first. So, I want to... Puke, I know you're busy, right? You got a lot going on, but...
I'm docked up right now.
Hell yeah. I want to... So, what... I just want to talk first, just to give, the people, the populace, the folks at home, an idea of who we're talking to. Let's just introduce you guys each real fast. Let's start with you, Puke, because you're the man at the top of the list. Or I guess the bottom of the list on this screen. Either way. What do you do? What's your role in your alliance? How'd you end up there, and where'd you come from?
Yeah. So yeah, Sedition is 160% snuffed alts. 100% true.
True.
Actually, we did a roam with snuffed out yesterday, so 100% facts.
That's facts.
But no, so where I started out, I'm a LowSec scrub through and through. I went to nullsec for a little bit. I started out in Aderon Robotics, a Galente Faction Warfare Corp. For my second round of EVE, my first time of EVE, I was also still in Gal Mail in Galente Militia, which was back in Just K days. So my grandfather, call him Grandpa, who's actually now back to the game
Hell yeah.
because of Uprising and Havoc, brought him back. Smokin' J. Archie, the legend, and he took me under his wing, and I was a total new bro flying Atrons. And then eventually I went to pirate LowSec lifestyle after with Intergalactic Space Hobos, and then after that I went to Null with NSH, and then I came back to LowSec, and we started Sedition, first round of Sedition, after Intergalactic Space Hobos fell apart in 2018 when LowSec was probably at its lowest point. And that was when the cores were hitting. That is when scarcity, I think scarcity started. I don't remember. It was bad.
3 years later, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was just the ecosystem was not good,
Yeah.
and mid-scale LowSec alliances were dropping off like flies. And so we created it. We started out in Syndicate, and we've been around all across the map. We went to Fade with Volta, which was not fun, and then all the way down south. And then we heard Uprising was happening. And my good friend Ronan, who founded Sedition, we founded it together with a couple other friends too. And we basically said, this is the opportunity. It's now or never to rebuild the Galente militia.
Hell yeah.
Because the Galente militia was totally dead. There was LowSec was dead. Every militia was not doing well.
Yeah.
There was nobody really around. And Uprising basically rekindled embers. And we're now a year back in... Yeah, basically a little bit over a year now back in Galente Faction Warfare, and now I'm running the show because our boy Ronan is currently deployed. He's in the military, and he's out in Poland right now.
Right
but yeah, so I'm steadying the ship, and I just run things and make sure people have fun.
Hell yeah,
That's
man.
what I do.
Well, the next we have here, of course, is the man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him a chance to have one anyway. Phantomite, former CSM, former member of, or still member of Blue Canary, your corporation, now in Sedition. Phant, please tell us more about yourself.
Well, shortly after after Uprising was announced and some of the mechanics were made public, I ended up leaving Snuffed Out and decided this was the ideal time to create a corporation. I created Blue Canary with just hopes and dreams to begin with.
Well, hell yeah.
Expecting that faction warfare, not only was faction warfare going to be good, but the lead up to Uprising expansion was going to start energizing faction warfare, and that turned out to be true. Blue Canary started out with me and a friend. We now will find sometimes 20 people online simultaneously without even a ping these days. We started out in Caldari faction warfare when Caldari had finally farmed the Galente to death. A little under a year ago, we moved down and joined the Minmatar militia. And I kept an eye on Sedition because I had always been very impressed with the work that they were doing, and as our time in Minmatar militia came to an end, there was a huge European time zone opportunity within Sedition, and we've been having a great time for the best part of a year in Sedition, and we continue to be able to grow the corporation, grow the things that the Alliance does, and it's great to be a part of it.
Hell yeah. Now, Alex, you and I, we perhaps know each other the least of the three of us here. In fact, I hadn't yet gazed upon your, I gotta say, strikingly handsome face until just today. So Alex, please tell me.
Blush a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I gotta butter him up so that it's like I said, it's all about good TV, man. What are you gonna do? Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your group, about where you guys are at right now. Because these guys, these are law doers. These are goody two shoes with their legal militia and their faction. But you guys have gone a slightly different direction. Tell us a little bit more about Gurmil and Dockworkers and what you're doing.
So, Dockworkers was formed by the corporation Did You Say Jump, which, if anybody has a long enough memory, was actually its own alliance at one point. And about, years ago, I'm not going to do the timeline because I can't remember. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
We've been LowSec pirates since the dawn of time, effectively, and that's where I started my game career in EVE in like 2006. And I've pretty much, except for really small stints in Null, done LowSec piracy my entire EVE career. So, the group I fly with is a lot smaller than it used to be.
Sure.
Some people might remember Dockworkers when we had 700 members or whatever, which is pretty good for LowSec. But we've downsized a lot since then, and we joined. We joined Galente, and we worked very closely with Sedition, which is kind of why I'm here today. About a year ago when Uprising came out, because as the theme seems to be going, people are coming back to the game because of this awesome content in Faction War. So, LowSec has been super awesome, better than I've seen it in 5+ years.
Yeah.
And I've been in LowSec a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when they announced that they were going to be doing the pirate faction war, so Agristas and Angels, immediately all my court members were like, all right, we got to do this. Like, we got to go back to our roots. Like, we can't be part of, the law-abiding Galente anymore. So pretty much we went through the hellish grind of fixing our standings. For anybody who's played the game long enough, all your pirate standings are just in the dumpster.
Yeah.
We fixed that and joined up with Gristas right away. So
Hell yeah.
And now I'm basically FC mercenary for Puke. About every 2 months, he pings me on Discord and says, "The bad phone is lit. Can you lead this, please?"
Hey man, we're about to do some dumb shit. You got some time?
We were anchoring a Fortizar. Oh Jesus Christ.
Well,
hey, it's a strong call. Everybody answers the call.
it is a strong call.
It's a filthy.
Yeah. It's a I'll tell you, one of the things that we're going to get to some of the stuff that you guys have been up to more recently, specifically stuff that I've also been up to with you more recently. But I wanted to touch on something that you said because all three of you basically mentioned the same thing, which is up until about this time last year, a little bit before this time last year, LowSec was a wasteland, right? I think it's pretty fair to say that outside of a handful of small pockets of activity, mostly around space where large groups already lived, there just was nothing going on. And then Uprising happened, and there were changes that were put in place to the mechanics of faction warfare that we have now seen, we have a year of experience with. So I want to talk first about what changed in your minds between back then and back now, that has been so compelling. Because to your point too, Alex, speaking of people coming back to play the game, I think that is a tune that is being sung by a lot of different people right now, and all different kinds of space too. People are saying, "Whoa, hey, something is happening in EVE again. We should go check it out." And a lot of those people are being drawn to the militias, being drawn to the new pirate factions. What changed mechanically in the game that has been so compelling for people to come back to LowSec? Open to everybody. You can all talk about this. I don't give a shit.
I mean, so much changed. It's fantastic.
There's
And it's
so
not even
many
just the
mechanical
faction war
ones. Yeah.
stuff. Even the change from 2 timers on small or medium structures to 1
Yeah.
was like a huge quality of life,
Biggest-
even for Null. But go ahead, Pete.
It's that I remember when you and a bunch of other people made that letter and posted it on Reddit about changing structure, quality of life. Game changer. It's instead of doing 3 timers for an Astra, you have to commit on the second one. It just massive quality of life improvement across the board there, and really shows that CCP, when they listen to players at times, can actually make really good iterative changes.
Wild, right? Isn't that crazy?
Just a general sense of like excitement, I think, just goes so a long way too, right? Like an area of the game that was so ignored for so many years that suddenly got anything, like was just I made everyone's like, ooh, let's pay attention to this. Because like frankly, the mechanics didn't change that much.
Mm-hmm.
Like people, there was just we had just lost over the course of a decade, like attrition of people,
Yeah.
and we'd lost like that critical mass of people to even make the mechanics interesting anymore. Right. It's like there's been a lot of like tweaks to numbers and stuff like that, like how long it takes to take systems and whatnot, which I think are all going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we've just got enough people to make it a vibrant area, like I remember before we like downsized dock workers, we'd sit in Cormonan and there'd be like 20 of us or 30 of us sitting on a gate, just like nobody would come through for an hour.
Yeah.
Just like totally dead. And if you look in there now, there's like 50 or 60 people in there all day
Like the
long
wrong
shooting
gate,
each other.
mate.
What's that?
Sounds
Yeah,
like the
no,
wrong gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there wasn't even any gate to like nobody was even camping Tama back then.
Uh-huh.
Like it was so dead, right? We totally lost like enough. There was nobody to even have content with. So
Now
that's
you bring up something interesting, which I wanted to touch on, which is this idea about I mean, perception creates reality. Perception creates reality, right? If people are perceiving a thing to be better, a lot of times for a lot of people that is all it takes for that thing to be better for them. Now granted, clearly there have been mechanical changes that have benefited the war zones and benefited the the way of the general way of life, the general ecosystem in LowSec. But there has been a certain amount of positivity, and so much of that positivity feels like it's being driven by the groups who now inhabit LowSec, especially the big militia groups. I mean, you can't go a day or two without Puke or Bear or some somebody else propaganda posting on Reddit about the war zone and how good it is to be in LowSec right now. How much of that do you feel plays into people wanting to come back and not just play the game again and joining their blocks or going to go huff gas somewhere, but actually getting involved in the war zone, getting involved in LowSec, and becoming parts of your guys' groups?
Eve is always it's a sandbox, right? And it's the content creators really make this game. Like CCP just gives us the tools to do what we do. So it's all about the people involved, and like to your point, like perception created reality, right? Like people got excited again, and it just kind of snowballed, right? And more people excited makes more content creators able to find content easier, and then it just gets that much better, right?
Yeah.
We're all too old now to hunt for content for 8 hours, roam around and get 2 kills. Not in college anymore.
Yeah, no fucking joke. Well,
And not just
It's straight up. Is stuff happening?
Yeah.
It's the lack of things happening makes people leave. Things happening makes people come back. It's as simple as that.
And I think that another thing too is they've created mechanics that gets more people in more centralized, focalized areas. So I think the frontline idea was just brilliant versus the old. Like you can pick any system and you can basically flip it, right? Like that's
that was a very farming centric way of it working. Frontlines is a far less farming centric way of doing it. It's PvP based.
Yeah, and so
yeah.
And I think that there's a mentality in LowSec where I think a lot of people are like, we want to be undocked, we want to fight. Like I don't crab anymore. I make enough money just from Plex. I mean, it also helps me have the Executor wallet, but just joking. But like it's like the content creation is the reward is that we get people content, they come back, and I ask the people this. I think there should be this survey for it, which is, like what brings you back? Like what brought you back? And I'm asking people this is word of mouth. It's I can undock in less than 5 minutes. I get a fight.
Yeah.
And like I can go 2 systems over. There's a fight. I know where to go. I know where people are, and I can get content super quickly. And the content scales. I can be solo somebody in a Tristan, or I can anchor Fortizar and get a 1,000-person fight. So it's really, really good to see that the content is really scaling, and people are just coming back because it's so easy to get content now.
Yeah.
Versus like taking 2 Titans, which Alex and I can talk about. We did a campaign in Solitude. We had to take 2 freaking Titans, and then it takes an hour and a half to get a big fight.
It was a 4-hour engagement every time.
Jesus.
Terrible.
Yeah. and people just don't have time for that. Like, I got a
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
want to talk. I want to talk about one specific
Please.
mechanic from Upright that I think has been extremely key. It's a controversial mechanic, but I think it's be best described as a two-edged sword, and that's the navy meta that surrounds faction warfare. For anybody who's not aware or not certain on it, the faction warfare complexes that push capture and give you LP for completing them are split into two sets of ships. There are navy, there's sizes as well, but that's not what I'm talking about. There's navy plexes and advanced plexes. In navy plexes, you can put Tech 1 and you can put 4 Empire navy ships in. In advanced plexes, you can also bring pirate ships and Tech 2 ships. And what this does is it means that it really very strongly pushes faction war PvP to be largely in T1 and navy ships. And it does two things. Number one, it lowers the barrier of entry to combat in this area. Navy ships are generally far cheaper than equivalent sized pirate ships. So it really pushes a lot of the. It pushes very hard on player skill. That was previously only part of it.
Right.
I think to
People could
add something to
simply
that,
just. Yeah, go on.
Phantomite, is for the battlefield specifically. Like, we've been debating
Yes.
for months. I'd love to be able to bring guardians in the battlefield, right? It sucks losing all your logi, and then, but there's like an element of like, it's almost good to lose ships because it gets people comfortable with losing some ISK instead of, because there's like this Z kill is awesome. I love my kill board, but it causes this risk aversion, right? And like when you're forced to fly Tech 1 ships, you get kind of more comfortable with losing ships, and it just becomes okay, a normal part of the game, right? Because as one of my friends used to say, sometimes you are the content. So you got to give and take.
Well, I think that that's an incredibly important thing to touch upon, especially in the battlefields. I think that people generally, when somebody's like, "Oh, I can't bring a guardian or a damnation to the battlefield," I'm like, right, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Essentially, by only being able to bring Auguras, Execuras, Ospreys, and Scythes for effective logi ships at cruiser size in there, what it really does is it essentially puts a cap on the number of people that can be reasonably effective in there.
Right.
And it's not an artificial limit on how big you can be inside those places. It's very much a how well do you want to perform in here? It means that we're kind of seeing, as we bring fleets of 30 or 40 people to the inside of battlefields, that's kind of getting to the limit of how effective Tech 1 logi can be. If you took that away and allowed people to bring guardians, it would just push the numbers of people up.
Right.
And there's space in the game for larger stuff elsewhere. That space already exists. And I really like this soft limit that stops people from doing this. That said, the pirate activity that is all in advanced plexes, it doesn't replace what we've got in faction warfare with this navy meta, but what it does do is it adds an extra area for fighting in with advanced ships, and I'm all for that.
Well, so I want to talk about something else too. Reknar makes a good point in chat as well, which is, of course, that the old mantra: ships are ammo, right? And the sooner you can get line members and your general the populace to understand that, the sooner you're going to be a more productive fighting force, because you're going to have members and FCs both who aren't so unwilling to undock because they're afraid of showing up on Z-Kill, right? Once you teach people that the whole point of the game is to, live, die, repeat sort of thing, you'll be in a much healthier spot. Now, I wanted to talk too a little bit about, let's call it content drivers or incentives to join the war zone. And one of the things that's been talked about a lot has been not just how frequently fights can happen, but how lucrative being active in the militias being active, especially now in the new pirate activities that are available, can be, and how much money people can get from those. One of the things, obviously, that has come up over the last couple of weeks has been the issue of CCP during the beginning of the Havoc expansion turning off LP trading. And I know we were going to get to this at some point anyway. I just want to get it out of the way now because this is a big thing. Why is that such a big, for the people who don't know, from your point of view, why is that such a big deal? Why is that so restrictive to the militias, including the pirate militia? I guess you call them the pirate militias. And why has that been so debilitating? There's been such a huge outcry against it from people who live in the war zones. What's the reason for that?
I'd like to warn you. This is a trigger warning for Puke here. He's about to go on a total.
I'm literally Dr.
I lined this up for him. So yeah, go ahead, please.
All right. So basically, faction warfare has had a scalability problem. Like there was no way for people in the system to make ISK passively so that they're able to grow their alliances over time.
Mm-hmm.
And LP tax was the first step. However, just because you have taxation, it's still very difficult. And Phantomite, I just had to do this to him, and he literally was crying because it's such a pain in the ass. I don't know if I can cuss. I'm sorry. But
no, you can. I don't give a fuck.
All right, cool. But pretty much the really big difficulty is that it's a currency. It's our version of ISK. And if we're able to utilize that income to support our members, how they can get ISK, otherwise, if there's no transaction of that ISK, the ability for alliances to create content and support their members gets diminished.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you have to go direct with BPCs, or you have to go through other formats to really like vitalize an alliance. So like 2 weeks before it was happening, I literally bought all our members LP as much as we can to sort of like be a winter bear, I don't know, in hibernation, so we can have sort of like coffers that we can use.
Well, so I guess the question is, it's a detriment to organizations, right? Not just because members themselves are still able to go out and collect LP, but now are you able to tax LP currently? Still?
Yep.
Yeah, you can tax it.
You can still tax it. I mean, basically, that we haven't been told the precise reason that CCP wanted to, in their words, temporarily turn off trading ISK to LP to corporations. We suspect, and Mark, you'll be in a position to either know why it's been done, or maybe you'll be in a position to ask and find out. But we assume that one likely reason is that they didn't want people quick farming, pooling their LP and quick farming stuff like the new Titan BPCs, things like that. They wanted to keep those values up, and they didn't want them to appear 5 days after the stuff arrived. But people can just set 100% tax on their corporation,
right?
And essentially the only people who aren't affected by this are farmers, not actual groups of people trying to interact with the sandbox.
Right. And so, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm trying to see if I can find it on Reddit real quick. Because I'm going to, full disclosure, I can't talk too much about this because I do know a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes with this decision. Regardless of whether or not I agree with it, is irrelevant. Because if I know about it, I can't talk about it. But I do want to, speaking of that Azariel blueprint that has caused so much consternation, let me see if I can pull it up here real fast.
This is about the method of earning the LP, not about the trading of it, though.
Correct. So there has been speculation. Let's go back to this other screen real quick. There has been speculation that one of the reasons CCP has been so or was so eager to turn off LP trading was to avoid people getting their hands on the Azariel blueprint early. Now, one player went out of their way to do a bit of cheeky market manipulation and got their hands on the Azariel blueprint early. CCP has since gone back and said, whoa, no, you can't do that. That's an exploit, and has taken away that blueprint, or we assume taking away that blueprint from that player. I guess my question for you guys is, in your mind, would it have just made more sense for CCP if they really wanted to artificially lock out that blueprint for a longer period of time?
Yes, I know what you're going to say. Yes.
Would it not have just made more sense to just not make it available until?
Yes, just release it 3 months later or however longer. Just
Also,
unlock it then.
But why do they care if somebody gets it on day one?
Well, that's a really good fucking question, Alex. That's a really good fucking question. Honestly.
It's a cool ship. Put it in the game.
It's not like it's a BPC that only takes 1 trip to build instantly.
Yeah. So, in the words of my homie Darkshines, who, when we were talking about this within amongst our own CSM selves recently, made the comment almost immediately, which was, why the fuck do they care? It's a cool ship. Like, the fact that somebody wants to fly a Titan in the year of our Lord 2023 should be a boon for CCP. Like, for all intents and purposes, these things are useless, but people still want it because it's cool, right? Why is that a problem? Why is this an issue? Why do they care if people are grinding LP to go out and get these things? Because that
or pooling it by donations,
or pooling it, yeah. So, to answer all of your questions, I have a lot of. I agree with you, Puke. Seriously, and this issue has been raised on more than one occasion because it's just dumb. It's a dumb thing to do. If they really wanted to lock it out, they should have just locked it out. It would not have been that hard to just say we're not going to list it on the LP market in the LP store until, I don't know, a month from now, 2 months from now, whatever they want to do, right? And in the meantime, you don't have to cripple the functioning which I should say this too, cripple a system that has worked, right, over the last year. I mean, the system or ever since we got LP trading, that has worked, right? Like, it's been a good system.
It's honestly like one of the biggest mechanical changes that improved faction warfare.
Yeah.
Like, anything that makes, this is going to sound really self-serving, but anything that makes the people who create content this game's lives easier should be a plus.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's like a very small percentage of people who actually like do almost all the work in this game.
Yeah.
So it's like if you make their lives easy, you're in a better shape.
I mean, you're not wrong though, right? Like, because people play this game in a handful of different ways. You have people who just want to log in, they just want to get in fleets, they just want to go out and find content, because it's a little bit of a rush, right? And at the same time, you also have people who are willing to organize the content, because if you just log in, there's no content, right? You have to undock and do something. The moment you start organizing, fleets, organizing, larger groups and moving them around the map, suddenly you become a content creator, right? The game lives and dies on content creators. We've been saying this for ages, and that's why we've pushed so hard for community tools for them to be more expanded or more expansive rather, because those community tools help content creators and the bureaucrats who support those content creators. So yeah, I'm glad we were able to talk about that a little bit, because
I want to reiterate, Mark,
please,
as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, the only people this didn't hurt was farmers.
Yeah. That's pretty dumb. That's pretty dumb, I think. Like, there is,
it hurt itself in its confusion.
Well, in this situation with the Zerial blueprint that was the one that was actually created, just shows that, right? Like, that what happened there didn't happen because of friendly cooperation. It happened because one guy just he did a thing and then grinded it for days.
I mean, that is outside of the LP trading anyway.
Right.
LP trading didn't even come into this, and
right.
they still found a way to do it.
I agree. Farmers. Casimir agrees. Yeah, exactly right. Civic trading only benefited people who could achieve the BPC some other way. The biggest farmers will be the ones to get the second Azerial BPC, and that kind of sucks.
Something that I've played EVE Online for over 17 years now. Something that I've noticed with first of ships coming out, small and large, cheap and expensive, is the people who rush to get into it and get out and PvP first also lose them pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, hell
Which is
yeah.
great for everybody.
I
Killed
would.
that alligator like 2 hours after it came out, right?
Yes.
I
Game.
fucking love the Swamp Drake, dude. I'm all about it. It's such a cool ship. Like it's not that great, but it's cool. I should say. I mean, what do you guys think about the new ships? So this is totally off topic. You guys like the new offerings that Havoc gave us? So what do you think?
I like those ones. I like these ones that have come out here. I like the bonuses and things that they got in there. They've given us some interesting ships, rather than this is now the best of this entire class.
Yes. Mark,
that's how every ship in this game should be, ideally.
Did I get the Killer Gator skin? I did not. I do have the Killer Kizreal skin though. The Tiamber Kizreal skin, the one that's like black with the orange highlights in it. That turns
Those skins
white.
are awesome.
They're so good. Shout out to our boy Kadari Prime Pony Club. He's a real one. And all the new skins are so good. They released the Galente Victory skins recently too. The ones that came out for the AT, the green and gold ones. So good. I think he worked on those too. He might not have worked on that one, but regardless. So I want to. We're actually getting close on time, but I want to go over a little bit because we've got two more things I want to talk about. The first is looking at the new mechanics of LowSec. So much has been said about how the new mechanics have, incentivized people to, actually engage in the front lines, incentivize people to actually want to take those fights. And the question that comes up so much is, when are they going to roll this out to other parts of the game? Like, when are we going to see these kind of mechanics showing up in nullsec, for example? And I think people are looking at it like, whether or not they are actually going to implement these things in full or in part. What are in your minds? And I know that one of you specifically, has very strong opinions about some of these things. In your minds, what do you see as the most beneficial takeaways for nullsec? Because nullsec currently, I mean, it's, with a handful of small exceptions in certain areas, it has been much discussed how nullsec has suffered over the last couple of years in stagnant wars that just kind of grind on, and there's not a whole lot of back and forth. And then they just end anticlimactically, and that kind of sucks, which is realistic in a certain way, but either way, in your minds, what could nullsec use from the new LowSec mechanic? What could they use to benefit from these mechanics if we were to want to start to, if CCP at some point comes around and says, let's start to shake some of these things up, let's move some of this stuff out there?
I think I'm gonna riff off what you said earlier, Phantomite, about like smaller groups in this game are always more interesting, because it's like, if you play this game for the social aspect, like it's fun to blow stuff up, but like the people I've been flying with for 5+ years. I know everything about them, right? And it makes it like, it's what keeps you in the game. And you don't get that when you're in a really big corp. If you're in a corp of thousands of people, like how many people do you actually know?
Sure.
And it kind of sucks, right? And like there's part of I've noticed it specifically in LowSec always, but even more recently, there's more smaller groups springing up, right? And like that's what builds your community. It's hard to build a community of 1,000 people. Like Goons does a good job, sorry to pander, because you guys are just like professionals at it, right? But like anybody in between, there's like the middle income gap, right? I'm gonna apply that to E for a moment. Like there's like nobody ever in the middle, because you get a few friends together in high sec and then they go to low sec and die.
Yeah.
Right. So like things that are like allow people to be smaller groups but still add value to their war zone are invaluable. Right. So like anything you could take out of LowSec and put it in null and allow people to be smaller but still functional and affect the outcome of things, I think would really benefit the game in general.
What about you, Fant? I mean, so much has been said about the the way people are getting around the war zone as well. I know that you have a lot of things to say about projection specifically.
Well, it does tie into that, but not directly. But I think that Puke brought this up actually, but one of the most vital things about revitalizing it has been twofold with the front lines. Number one, the front lines define a place where you can make progress. But also the way the front lines work is it encourages you to live on the edge of those front lines, i.e. it encourages you and rewards you for living in a place that has a genuine risk of being lost and you losing access to it. It pushes you to live next to the content, and it pushes the enemy to live next to the content. It literally puts the two sides close to each other. And I think that a lot of people think about faction warfare and what nullsec could gain from it. A lot of people think of the acceleration gates and the content. I don't think that's the most important thing. I think the most important thing is encouraging and rewarding people for living close to their enemies.
Sure.
And I think that is the concept that is going to be the savior of an otherwise frozen nullsec.
Sure.
It kind of reminds me of the same type of mechanic, or the same idea of the mechanic behind the bounty reward, like the way it sometimes goes up or down depending on how much activity is in that system. Like, right? It kind of, I think the idea of there is like to shove people towards the fringes, but it like in reality, people just farm until it gets to 50%.
Right. Yeah. I want to talk to Puke because I know you and I spoke about this just the other day. There has been a lot said about how much value there is in space and how much so much space feels just like empty nothingness that you just have to travel through to get to another place. And so when people talk about projection, they're saying, well, why is projection such a bad, such an issue? There's all this extra space in here that there's nothing there. We could just bypass this and get right to the good stuff. So the question has come up a lot about passive income and passive mining and passive moons and the whole, a whole swath of passive applications for different for different organizations to make or for a way for CCP to make more space more valuable to different organizations and make groups who live in that space, more sustainable long term. Do you feel like that's something that would benefit LowSec specifically and the game as a whole more generally?
Yeah, I think I can combine both of your questions.
Please, go ahead.
So the big thing is that you have to allow who's the Lord of the Rings, the dwarf?
Gimli.
And Lord of the Rings? Gimli.
Hell yeah.
You got to give the Gimlis of the world the opportunity to fight like the bigger guy. And you got to give them the tools. So like what they can do is that passive income, like with passive LP tax, has allowed faction warfare groups to fight more regularly the pirate groups. Like we wouldn't be able to fight Snuff as regularly. We wouldn't be able to fight Big AB. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing without passive income. So yes, 100% slam dunk. But transitioning that into null, when it's like when the Gauls were killing the Romans, right, in the Roman Empire, you need a mechanic that chips away at that armor slowly where the blob cannot win. And in Plex warfare, right, that blob cannot win. If you are, a tightly organized group, it's all in front lines, they'll have to throw away resources and it becomes more of a tug of war versus like who can spam at an iHub.
Sure.
So I think the Plex warfare mechanics can give an opportunity if they, obviously the sizing will have to change, right? But would give, like, for example, an arena where null groups would have to defend their space 24/7. Because you can then be a little group that, let's say for goons, right? I could live in NPC Delve, and then on the outskirts, those are the front lines compared to NPC Delve space, and I have to constantly defend that space. That's not dead space anymore that you put a jump bridge to. That's where the assault is happening.
Sure.
And now the more space you have to now defend everything at once. And it's not a capital umbrella is not going to stop that from happening. So if they can make it scale and convert it, and it's not going to be just tie-dye fights everywhere.
Sure.
I think you can kill both of those stones by making it more a scalable project. But at the same time, the little groups need to be able to have the ability to scale, and passive moons just need to come back.
I agree.
Right.
When you mentioned it the other night, I thought it was a really compelling argument. And I have one more thing I need to ask you, Puke. And this is only really going to be funny to a handful of people, but given the reference you just made, how often do you think of the Roman Empire, Puke?
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Probably
okay.
every. My fiance asked me that same question.
I bet she did. Absolutely bet she did.
She saw the TikTok.
Yeah.
And she's like, "How often do you think of it?" I'm like, "I don't know, like once a week, once every other week."
I mean,
it pops in your head.
It's not that it's pretty frequently, right? Is that just? It's not just us, right? What about you,
Alex Phantomite?
Yeah.
I play EU4 and I'm always trying to form the Roman Empire. So God damn it.
Well, listen, we've talked a lot about mechanics. We've talked a lot about the, where we've come from, how things are right now. I want to talk about I want to touch on one more quick point. Because one of the things, I'm going to pull up this here real fast. One of the things that gets often discussed about LowSec is that people feel, especially people who are coming from Null, and in Null, they see a lot of larger engagements, hundreds on each side, where these big fights, and they like those big fights. I mean, and CCP clearly likes those big fights. That's what puts asses in seats, right? That's what they put on the marketing material. These big engagements. Well, we've seen, and I want to pull up. Hang on one second, because there's a. I actually want to do two things here real fast. Where's the fucking video? Here it is. I want to pull up two things here real fast, because there was, or rather, there has been. Hang on. Is this actually not it? Maybe this isn't it. Regardless. Oh, yeah, here it is. Found it. So, the argument then goes, well, there are no big fights in LowSec, right? All you're ever going to get in LowSec are these little skirmishes in these plexes, and that's all it's ever going to be. So if you want to go out and 1v1 somebody in a Tristan, then awesome, cool, congratulations. But if you want real fights, real big fights, that's happening in nullsec. And I think we've seen recently, or at least not recently, within the last couple of months, that probably just isn't true, right? Like,
that's never been true.
Yeah.
It's never been
I hate to say it, but like that's never been true.
Let's
Fights have always been in LowSec. Like the biggest Dreadball fights, like yeah, you might get a huge one once a year in Null, but it's in 10% tie-dye and it takes
Right.
12 hours.
Let's
Ours are done in 45 minutes.
Let's pull this up real quick, because this was a fight from just the other night, and I'm gonna let you guys talk about, you, especially Puke, because you were the one who phoned the fucking bat phone for this. Talking about how many people were on. I mean, I think at max I saw 1,200 in local for this. This fight kicked off because of an anchoring Fortizar, and there were and this does not show how many different sides there were in this engagement. This happened in Valil just the other day. Was a fight that happened on an anchoring fort. So many different groups within all of these categories were working independently, simultaneously, shooting at each other. I can tell you right now that we absolutely shot Horde, and they're in the same column as we are in this thing. Tell me a little bit about what this was, how things like this happened, and why things like this continue to happen, and why people seem so excited about it.
Because I think people know that there's certain content creators that are willing to literally just say, screw it, we're gonna anchor a Fortizar in our home station, and what happens, our home system, what happens is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's 12 bill, right? Let's just create content. And I think people are attracted to it, and there's I think in the past 4 or 5 months, I mean, the three of us here have we're all involved in some of the biggest Dread Brawl fights over the past year, and stuff like this, right? Like how it unfolded is that we were bored. We were just like, let's just do it. Let's just anchor a fort. We had 80 people in fleet, and we said, let's see what happens.
Sure.
We lose, we win. Who cares? It's a game.
Now, I want to say this too, because it takes two to tango, right? When you guys were anchoring this, Big Ab showed up in their Bargus fleet, correct?
Yeah.
But they didn't kill the fort.
No, and I think they could have easily killed that fort, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they could have killed it, but they didn't, because they have the same mentality we do. Let's do round 2. It's like Rocky, right? I don't care. We're going to try it again. And excuse me. And so I think that mentality of wanting to have lots of fights, and Goons showed up, Init showed up, Brave showed up, Horde said they were going to probably come, and I saw they had Corms there and stuff. And it was just everybody, and these fights happened because people just want to be undocked shooting each other. And as long as CCP supports and creates systems and tools that we can do that, more of these fights are going to happen in LowSec. And in the past, I would say 6 months, I mean, I don't know, Alex, 5 or 6 times this has now been happening? Maybe like once a month? And it's good, and hopefully it happens more and more. It's not just, you know, I have to go buy some Plex or something, or raise our LP tax a little bit and anchor a fort.
Right.
You know, like,
Well,
or the Satio timer too. That was what, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, I was
Not
gonna say
even?
I wanted to bring this up too because this is just another instance of the Big Ab anchoring a structure goes down, people get bat phoned, and suddenly all of LowSec shows up for what is effectively a huge capital brawl, a huge subcap brawl. This one happening on that on that Sotio grid where we saw Lancers, we saw Titans, we saw Supers, the whole 9 yards. I agree with you, Alex, where I feel like this notion that LowSec is somehow diminutive compared to the day-to-day life of the standard nullsec block is disingenuous. It's not maybe always as huge and bombastic all the time, but the idea that there's anything but major content happening in LowSec right now just feels false at face value. When you look into it a little bit deeper, the whole 9 yards. This content doesn't happen on accident, right?
Yeah, and but the thing is, it's also because of Uprising, right? You have battlefields that are smaller scale, and the cool thing about LowSec, which LowSec has this tribal mentality, and there was this unspoken rule that every LowSec group, and you too, Mark, followed. We killed every null group on grid first.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Sorry. Like we band together. Like, this is our space, and if you're coming in, I love you goons. You guys are cool, but like, we're gonna all work together to shoot you guys first because you're not part of the club.
Yeah.
And then once all the grid, when everyone cleared was totally LowSec only, everybody started shooting each other.
I will
say, it was cannibals, it was piranhas. It was fantastic.
It was wild. I will say, I do want to add this as well. I was fiercely aggressed the other night by a goon Skybreaker fleet and received a disheartening message afterwards. I'll put it up on screen now. You can see here, I was BM'd by the goon Imperium himself in the middle of the fleet after he killed my Draugr. Brutal attack on me personally. Absolutely gutting. But
I don't know, Mark. It sounds like a skill issue.
Oh, is that right? Oh, sounds like a skill
he wasn't
issue.
in high grades.
Jesus.
High grade pilot.
That is
mid grade
true.
pilot, not a high grade pilot.
I was not in high grades for that. If I was in a fucking Draugr, I was gonna die. Anyway, well, gentlemen, listen. We're gonna talk more about this going into the future. I'm so glad you guys have come in here. I want to have you back at some point. I want to have you back in a couple months when we can talk more about how Havoc has changed the landscape. Hopefully, we'll see some things come back by then. Obviously, we're hoping and praying for the safe return of LP trading at some point. And there are, I know you guys have a handful of white papers out right now for things that you would like to see changed and altered about the mechanics. So much has been said about how good LowSec as a collective has been at addressing issues within the space and how well organized you have been. And I know Puke, you guys, Alex, and Fan, all three of you have been such a huge player in that. So I want to give you credit for that. I know it's a hard thing to do to kind of herd cats in that way. Trust me, I understand how hard that is.
I do it for a living too, so I'm used to it by now.
I get that. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out here today. Is there anything else you want to plug? Anything else you want to talk about ahead of time? I know Puke, you've got an event coming up here in just a couple days. You want to talk about that before we go?
Yeah, so on December 16th, Mark, you can definitely come.
Yes.
You're one of us.
Yes.
December 16th, there is the first ever a 6-way militia brawl on December 16th, 2000 Eve time. Fleet, FLIET. Bring your friends. We're gonna go. Everyone's gonna warp to a plex, and we're gonna brawl it out. And it's basically king of the hill. Which militia is the best? And if you are a classical pirate, like Snuffed Out and Big AB, I hope you also come because we get to shoot you too.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be lots of fun. So please come December 16th, 2000 Eve time. Fleet system. So should be a blast.
Fant, Alex, have you got anything before we go?
I'm the LowSec and check it out. There's, direct enlistment has been awesome. So, there's no real loss other than some few million Iskin frigates. So.
Hell yeah. Fant, you got anything before we go?
Guys, don't write off faction warfare as a fleetless space. you will twice every 3 hours have the chance to show up to a battlefield even as a neutral and attract the attention of someone local, or even find somebody local with 5 guys, 10 guys, 30 guys who are ready to fight.
And I'll be camping outside the Plex with my interceptor.
Well,
Make sure you align down the gate and walk together after getting rid of the tacklers on the outside.
Exactly. Well, thank you all so much, and thank you, viewers, for watching. This has been the Meta Show with me, Mark, of course, Youngpuke2, Phantomite, and Alexander Blessed. We will hopefully be back next week. I think Old Man Brisc is going to be have woken up. He's traveling right now. I think he's in DC maybe, or in New York. Listen, this guy, he finds so many hotels. He's big on hotel beds. You know, his mattress at home is fine, of course, and Miss Brisc is there, and she's lovely. But the man loves himself a good hotel bed. I'm sure he's fast asleep right now. Hopefully, he'll be back next week. We will see. Until then, friends, my name is Mark Resurrectus. You've been watching The Meta Show, and you stay chaotic, New Eden.